Week 17 told us everything we need to know about a bunch of teams. Who's a real contender and who's not. We've got a lot to talk about, but first, be sure to like the video, subscribe. If you enjoy our content, share it wherever you can. We greatly appreciate you. Also, shout out to Garland Muse on Twitter. Your support is very appreciated. But starting things off, the Baltimore Ravens dominated the Miami Dolphins. And my co-host has a lot to say about this, so I'm going to defer to him pretty quickly. But it's a bad loss for the Dolphins. At the same time, I don't think they're going to have as many turnovers as they did against Baltimore's defense in the playoffs. That was about as bad of a game as we have seen from Tua. I don't think he'll repeat that. I think Raheem Mostert and Jalen Waddle not being in the offense, being out, really did not do them any favors. Are they on the same level as the Baltimore Ravens? Probably not, but we definitely don't have a good picture of that given they did not go at the Ravens full strength. But Baltimore, clearly the best team in the AFC right now. In the casual's point of view, Lamar Jackson clearly going to win MVP. He ran away with it this week. There's no shot anyone else wins it now.
5 touchdowns certainly helps.
Yeah, getting the ball in the red zone a lot also certainly helps. But tell us what you thought about the game, Tristan. Pound your chest for being right, for once.
Well, the Ravens, they've been one of the most healthy teams this year. It seems like the story of the teams that are really competing are teams that are staying healthy at key positions. But it's not like the Ravens haven't dealt with adversity this year. They lost Mark Andrews early in the season to injury. They lost J.K. Dobbins in week 1. They lost Keaton Mitchell, who stepped in and was playing a big role in the middle to late part of the season. So they have lost key players on their offense, much like a team like the Dolphins have lost losing Jalen Waddle. They're not able to replace the production as well. Tyreek Hill was a little banged up, but he played fine in that game. They lost Bradley Chubb. They lost, who's the other edge rusher? Jalen Phillips early in the season. So the Dolphins have been banged up. But the Ravens, with whatever adversity they've dealt with health-wise, Lamar Jackson has elevated that team. He just threw for 5 touchdowns. He elevates that offense. The defense does what they need to do. And any hope Tua ever had at winning the MVP died this past weekend. Because we saw when the Dolphins are dealing with adversity, when they're missing a few players, and they're playing one of the best teams in the NFL, he is unable to elevate that team past another really good team. Because unless they get out to a lead early, unless they get an early Tyreek Hill 60-yard touchdown, unless Raheem Mostert or now Devon Achane break a big 60-yard run and get the Dolphins out ahead, even with their explosive offense, they are not able to play from behind. And Tua, as good of a quarterback he is, I think he's a top 10 guy. He's not even close to that Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen game-breaking tier where they can take over a game no matter what injuries happen on their offense or what has happened during the game. So that's how I feel. I'll let you respond to that since I know you probably...
The Tua Tagovailoa is never going to win an MVP take based off a Week 17 game when he was missing 2 of his 3 best offensive weapons. It's certainly one which exposes your narratives. I'm sorry he's better than your guy Justin Herbert. I really am. I wish for your sake Herbert was better.
Justin Herbert isn't my guy.
He clearly is your guy. You are a big Justin Herbert fan. We can deny it as much as you want. We can roll the past tapes.
Find him.
The Dolphins will be fine. Tua Tagovailoa will be fine. Is he ever going to win MVP? Who knows? It's hard to win an MVP. It's hard to win 2, but Lamar Jackson's about to do that. Just the flat-out Tua hate there, it's perplexing. I'm not going to get into your psychology any further. We both agree, though, the Baltimore Ravens are clearly number 1, not only in the AFC, but in the entire NFL right now.
They are number 1 because of Lamar.
Can you just give me a yes-no answer? I'm not saying it's because of Lamar. No, it's because they have an elite defense and they have Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson was playing on the Chargers probably still wouldn't be number 1. The Lamar Jackson is not some magical 100-point turn for a team throughout the course of the season. They're good because they're a good team and they have a great quarterback.
They're good because they're a good team, but when it comes to comparing them to someone like the 49ers, who also have a great team, the difference in between the Ravens beating the 49ers and really blowing them out of the water is the fact that Lamar Jackson is a game-changing quarterback in that top 3 elite type tier.
Lamar picked Brock Purdy off 4 times?
No, but the Ravens have very good defense. The 49ers have very good defense.
It helps a great deal for your quarterback to be able to run the ball and control time possession. It also helps when he gets the ball an additional 5 times because the other team has a bunch of turnovers. Will that happen in the playoffs? Who knows? Will a certain other team we're going to talk about right now even make it past the first round of the playoffs? I'm starting to get a little bit questionable. The Philadelphia Eagles, another bird team, was exposed by the Arizona Cardinals. And I say every week that Kyler Murray has the potential to break a game open himself, win it for his team because he's that talented. Didn't think he was going to do it this week. I didn't think he was going to be able to outmuscle the Eagles single-handedly, but their defense is bad enough. Their offense didn't quite rise to the occasion when they needed to, and little Kyler got the Arizona Cardinals a massive victory, not for the sake of other teams, but to rather move the Eagles back in the standings, keep them in that wild card spot. And I'm starting to ask some questions. It's finally starting to break a little bit. Both teams in last year's Super Bowl, the Chiefs and the Eagles, have massive flaws. The Eagles have been talked about a lot more, and I think the Eagles is going to be a much bigger deal come playoff time. Because Patrick Mahomes can throw to Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce if push comes to shove. The Chiefs can run the ball in the playoffs with Isaiah Pacheco if they really need to. You can't hide your entire defense. And the Eagles' defense stinks. If they have to go up against the Cowboys of Jerry World, if they have to go up against the 49ers, if they have to go up against the Lions, they're not going to win. I don't see the Philadelphia defense being able to hang in the playoffs. You need a good defense, or at least a defense which gets hot come playoff time if you want to compete for a championship. The Eagles have neither of those things. Their season is effectively over.
Well, it was a big weekend for people that hate Nick Siriani because to have your former defensive coordinator go to a team that is one of the worst rosters in the NFL go into was it in Philadelphia? I don't know if it was in Philadelphia or Arizona, but beat you. You have the more talented team, and they embarrassed you. The Cardinals aren't playing for a playoff spot. They're only ruining their draft stock. It's not going to help them get Marvin Harrison Jr. or whoever they may desire in this year's draft by winning this game. Yet they went out with your old defensive coordinator, someone who was in your building. You have the more talented team, and they beat you. So from that standpoint, really hurts Nick Siriani. It gives me a lot more questions about his quality as a head coach, the fact that happened, because when you combine that with the fact the Colts are also being very successful with Shane Steichen. Nick Sirianni had to bring in 2 new coordinators. That in the first place is hard, but to be as limited as they've been this late in the season with their defense now clearly established as one of the 3 worst defenses in the NFL, and their offense now, even with all that high-end talent they have, I love A.J. Brown. I love Devonta Smith. I like Jalen Hurts. He's an all right kind of guy.
Sets up his tripod at Target.
I like all the pieces they have on their offense, but the fact that's failing now too, I think they're going to be a first-round exit.
Scored 35 points, by the way, or 34 points. I don't think the offense failing.
By failing, I mean they're not able to keep up with how bad their defense is, because if your defense is that bad, your offense needs to be that good to make up for it.
A lot is being said about Nick Sirianni, and it's pretty important to note Nick Sirianni is not the coach of the entire NFL fan base. He is the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles roster, and that's it. I still think that roster has a lot of faith in him. I don't think he's lost the locker room. I think he's still a very good motivator and a good coach for what that team is in need. They lost their defensive coordinator, and they lost a ton of defensive depth, both throughout the season due to injuries and in the offseason. Their defense was going to get worse. Got a lot worse than we thought it'd be. I still thought it'd be around a top 10, maybe top 15 at worst. Now it's near the bottom of the league. But this is not on Sirianni. I'm not blaming this on him. Motivational coaches have a place in the NFL. They can work. They're working all over the place. You'd like a little gadget guy, a little gamer, a little craftsman. You'd like some of that to a certain extent. You'd like a Belichick. You'd like a McDaniel. You'd like a Kyle Shanahan. But guys like Sirianni, guys like Dan Campbell are finding success. They still have the locker room behind them. They can still get their teams going. I don't think the Eagles are making it very far in the playoffs because their defense stinks, but I don't think it's because they don't have any faith in their coach because Sirianni doesn't work anymore. I think it's going to be a down year for them because they lost a lot of people and had some injury issues.
Well, we're starting to see a track record with how the Eagles organization works. Not too long ago, Doug Peterson went to and won a Super Bowl. A couple years later, he's gone and booted out of the organization.
Yeah, because he deliberately tanked the final game of the season. That's why he got fired.
Well, I mean, it only benefited them. It got them Devonta Smith.
I don't know about that one, man. The deliberate choice to bench your starting quarterback in the fourth quarter for unforeseen reasons was probably the last blow. I don't know if that's it benefited them type thing, but
anyway, there was clear downward spiral from their Super Bowl appearance that they happened to win. Now Nick Sirianni went to a Super Bowl. What have we seen since then? Loses the coordinators, loses a couple pieces. Then all of a sudden the team's up in flames. Maybe they're even worse next season. I don't think that's going to happen because they have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Hurts all under contracts. I mean, Jason Kelce, maybe that retirement ruins the offensive line.
You're talking about a team falling apart when they still have double-digit wins. I think it's a lot more to do than the talent around them in terms of the 49ers, Cowboys, and Lions getting better than the Eagles getting worse. But we can talk about this to death, and there's another game I really want to touch on before we get too deep into the minutia.
Touch it up.
Touch it up? All right. So the Dallas Cowboys had an interesting conclusion to their game on Saturday night, should have been Monday night. A certain refereeing faux pas, which may or may not have been on the Cowboys, or may or may not have been on the Lions' offensive line, may or may not have been on Brad Allen, still a great official, cost the Lions a 2-point conversion. And a lot of people are up in arms. People are going to use this to bash the Lions. They're not playoff ready. They can't be a contender. They're going to use this to bash the Cowboys. Oh, you got bailed out by the refs. This should show me that either of these teams can go and play anybody in the NFC, look competitive, be in a game with them, and have the chance to win. Lions almost beat the Cowboys on the road in Jerry World. No one has done that all year. The Cowboys were completely undefeated at home. Cowboys played very well defensively against an elite Lions offense. I saw a lot of good in this game. I think both these teams are going to be fine. Hard to say how the first round matchups work if these teams wind up facing each other again. I think we'll see another great game if they square off in the divisional round though. But this game didn't tell me anything negative about these two teams. Sure, Lions defense was bad. We already knew that. Are you shocked by the fact Cee Dee Lamb cooked them? No. The only reason they didn't get it cooked even more is because Aiden Hutchinson had the best game of his career. Don't need to touch on that too heavily. But I am optimistic about both these teams. The refereeing is unfortunate. I think there's a 50-50 shot that is on the Lions offensive line coaching staff as opposed to just being solely on the ref. But because everyone hates the refs, the 99% group reaction is going to be, oh, let's blame Brad Allen.
Well, I don't feel that strongly about Brad Allen, and I don't feel that strongly about the mistake at the end of the game. What this game told us is what we knew about both teams already. Cowboys have a very good defense. They have a very good offense that's predicated on just two players, Dak Prescott and Cee Dee Lamb. And when I harp on the Lions defense for the fact that they gave up so many yards to Lamb, it's because they were so stubborn. I don't know if it was Dan Campbell. I don't know if it was the defensive coordinator. I don't know what went into game planning. But when you're manning up Cee Dee Lamb play in and play out and just letting him tear you apart, you have to have a better game plan there. Because if you take Cee Dee Lamb away and you look at games where the Cowboys haven't been as successful this season, it's when Cee Dee Lamb is not as much of a factor in the game. You take Cee Dee Lamb away, you take away a majority of the Cowboys offense, and you don't see Brandon Cooks making a big play here, and you don't see Tony Pollard springing play here, and you don't see Jake Ferguson making a couple big plays here and there. So the fact their game plan for Cee Dee Lamb was so bad, they didn't really deserve to win that game. And then on the Cowboys side of things,
guys, I have something to add off that. I agree with you that Cee Dee Lamb should have maybe received more attention, but at the end of the day, the reason Cee Dee Lamb did as well as he did, and the Cowboys offense still only had 20 points, one, because of that fumble, obviously, but two, Lions defense, aside from him, played very well. Pass rush was on point. That man coverage was forcing Dak to take sacks sometimes, and they were doing a good job of defending the run, locking up everything else. They sold out to stop everyone but Cee Dee Lamb and said, you know, if he beats us, he beats us, which may be a bad strategy, but I think it worked out fairly well for him. Lions defense looked better against the Cowboys than it had all year.
Well, Aiden Hutchinson certainly had a great game, so it was good for him on that front. But I also got some pushback when I talked about this game on TikTok about the fumble being lucky. Yes, that's a lucky fumble. Anytime a fumble happens that normally, if it was happened further downfield, would have rolled out of bounds. Anytime that happens near the goal line and goes out of the back of the end zone, yes, I think that's lucky that happened to be a turnover. I'm sorry if you feel otherwise to the Lions fans that were salty about that that were mad about that.
Luck is involved with turnovers to a certain extent, but at the same time, if a receiver deliberately decides, hey, I'm going to reach out to the end zone, I'm going to put the ball more at risk than I normally would, that's on him. That's a hazard you take. You flip the coin, you roll those dice every time you try and do that. It would have been lucky if Cee Dee Lamb scored a touchdown there and retained possession? Yeah, probably. But I think that's kind of a part of football. We're saying, oh, lucky here, lucky there. Luck is a part of the game in that sense. It's risk-taking and luck. Like sometimes it's rewarded, sometimes it isn't. It's not even luck, it's mostly probability.
And I would agree with that some blame falls on Cee Dee Lamb there, but I think if you're a Lions fan and you're so upset about everything else and you're not acknowledging the fact that you got a little bit fortunate for things to fall your way there, I think it's a wee bit delusional.
Getting aggressively screwed by the refs is not part of normal football play.
I thought you're not really blaming the refs, you're blaming the Lions coaching.
It's 50-50.
Oh, okay. But on the Cowboys side of things, you said, I think these teams can compete with anyone. I don't really think either of these teams can compete with the 49ers at home.
How bad Brock Purdy's been playing? Brock Purdy's been stinking it up the last 2 weeks. Baltimore coach It didn't look good against the worst defense in the NFL. Brock Purdy heard Cam Newton and decided, oh, wait a second. My childhood hero is telling me I'm really not that guy. Maybe I'm not that guy. Although I don't think Brock Purdy, being an immobile pocket passer, looked up to Cam Newton growing up and really modeled his game after that, but
the Cowboys in the playoffs, in a big moment, we saw why they are likely to fail again. Because they have an opportunity to basically make it impossible for the Lions to score. All they need to do is run the clock down. And whether you want to place blame on Dak Prescott or place blame on Mike McCarthy for the play call, he just chucks the ball deep down the field out of bounds, giving the Lions the ability to get the ball back with no timeouts with 1:40 left on the clock instead of getting the ball back under a minute. So from that standpoint, the Cowboys deserve to lose because you absolutely completely mismanaged the end of that game. The Lions shouldn't really have had an opportunity. And then the fact that they just move down the field that quickly on you. Your defense is supposed to be elite. You play prevent and let the Lions make it look like you don't even have a defense out on the field. So from that standpoint, I lost faith in the Cowboys too because they showed again in a big moment when they have a chance to close out the game versus a team that is one of the best teams in the NFC, they failed.
You just hate on everyone who's not one of the best teams in the conferences, though. You hate on the Dolphins even though they could make some noise in the playoffs. You're hating on the Cowboys, the Eagles. Hating on the Lions some. You're just a 49ers and Ravens shill this year.
I'm the furthest thing from a 49ers shill.
I don't know. I think it is a little bit of disingenuousness to say, oh, they don't have a shot in the playoffs. The 49ers,
Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, they might make a run. Even though they lost to the Saints, I don't care.
I don't know if they're making the playoffs anymore. At best, the Ravens and the 49ers have a 50% chance to make it out of their conference. And I think you should stop acting like it's a foregone conclusion they're going to both be in the Super Bowl. Anyway, you wanted to talk about the Giants and something you were calling a tactical loss.
It was a tactical loss. You know, we see these teams towards the end of the season, their fan bases are rooting for them to lose for draft position. And I always think when we look at teams that are maybe losing on purpose, it never quite works out. And teams, when they actually do win a couple of their last games, it gives them, I don't know if you want to call it good fortune, it builds a culture, it builds a base for them to look towards the future.
It's about to get the Chicago Bears stuck with another year of Justin Fields. That's what it's about to do.
Well, when you look back at a team like the Dolphins, who that year everyone thought they had the worst roster in the NFL. They didn't think they were going to be able to build towards anything. It was tank for Tua. Look what happened. They wound up winning a couple games no one thought they would win. They fall to the 6th pick. They still wind up getting Tua, and now they did wind up firing Brian Flores, but there's a little bit more mitigating circumstances to that.
I think they'd rather have Joe Burrow in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to be honest with you.
But now Joe Burrow, he has missed 2 seasons of his career so far, and that's 2 seasons they're not going to truly compete for a Super Bowl. And they haven't won a Super Bowl yet with Burrow, so that would be my response to that.
Been to a Super Bowl with Burrow.
Did they win it?
I think you are being awfully disingenuous, but continue with your talk of the Giants. The Giants haven't factored into this yet.
Anyway, I'm building a premise for the idea that it's good to compete at the end of the season rather than just chalking it up and tanking. I mean, even you take a look at Andrew Luck, a situation where tanking did work out because you got a very good player that changed your organization's fortunes completely around. They never went to a Super Bowl with Luck. It never quite worked out. They went through multiple head coaches. They never fixed the offensive line. So while it made them competitive and they competed with Andrew Luck and they tanked in order to get him, it never led to any Super Bowl, never led to any hardware. It led to multiple head coaches. And it led to a horrible offensive line for a decade.
Can you get to the point? Can you say something about the Giants?
So the Giants, they got the best of both worlds. They're building towards next season. They want to build some momentum with the youngsters, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, that young receiver room, anyone that maybe has hope of still being there on the offensive line next season. They want to build some momentum by beating the Rams. But they also don't want to ruin their draft pick so they're able to maybe still get another quarterback or they're able to get one of those high-end elite skill positions that we see at the top of the draft this year or one of the offensive tackles. So the kicker went out there, 4th-string kicker, and Brian Daboll didn't want him to make it. They built up the confidence and the momentum from making it a close game. They didn't get completely destroyed by Aaron Donald, Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford, and Cooper Company. They have the confidence built there, and they also kept their draft pick. So that's my take.
Man, you're a loser. Gonna go on this long rant, say, oh, it's actually good to win games towards the season, and then just go a full 180. Well, I'm glad the Giants lost. It's not good culture to have your idiot kicker go out there and miss a game winner, man. What are we talking about here?
It's a third-string kicker.
Who? I thought it was their fourth-string kicker. Suddenly
Third or
it's moving
fourth
up the
string,
depth
I don't know.
chart. Most NFL teams don't even have a third-string kicker. That was basically their backup running back going out there to kick.
I
don't know what
Mason
you're
Crosby
talking
a
about,
back.
man. I think it's some cope. I do think it is a little bit of cope on your part. You say, oh, look, we're building an elite culture. No, you're not building an elite culture. Your elite culture, so-called, is what got Daniel Jones a $40 million annual contract. Get that stuff out of here, man. Get Jalen Hyatt out of here. Get Darius Slayton out of here. Get all these bums out of my face. Stop talking to me about these poverty wide receivers.
Do you want to cope about the Vikings a little bit?
I got no cope, man. I will say 100%. This game had two outcomes. One, Jaron Hall says, hey, I deserve a shot. I'm able to put up numbers. Even though I'm 25, I'm a promising young rookie quarterback. And that didn't happen. So now the Vikings are going to be able to move on from him scot-free. And I think it was going to happen anyway, but it would have been a little bit more complicated if Jaron Hall threw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks and snuck the Vikings in the playoffs. Now, we have the opportunity to either extend Kirk and draft someone later in the first round, or we have the opportunity to trade up, get a Drake May, get someone like that, and really go forward with one of the high-end quarterbacks. It's a good spot to be in. Would have liked the Vikings to win. That would have been nice. But now I get to root for the Chicago Bears for 2 reasons next week. 1, beat the Packers, eliminate them from the playoffs. Everybody wants that. 2, if they win, Justin Fields gets an extension. And everybody in the AFC North wants that. Anyway, I don't think that's cope. I think it's more so that's where we are.
Justin Fields hate.
I watched him score 12 points with 0 touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings defense and win a game earlier this season. I am praying, 1, we get a different quarterback, and 2, he remains the Bears quarterback. You could put the all-decade team around Justin Fields, and you're topping out an 11-win wildcard team. That has been our episode for Week 17. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Should we make any solo videos about individual topics? Let us know that too. We greatly appreciate your support out there. And we will see you next week. Oh, and use code Thicc with 2 C's on Underdog.